Welcome into another edition of SEC Football and Beyond. I'm Neil McCready. Chris Landry with me here today as well. As always, it's Tuesday, December the 15th. We're recording at around 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, so hope you are having a great start to your week. It's a little cold out there. It was chilly in Oxford last night, Chris. Oxford Middle School defeated Lafayette Middle School 1-0 in soccer, and by the end of the game, it felt like just a battle of attrition. It was cold. Guys were getting cold. Guys were starting to cramp because running in the cold can get to you after a little while. So that game's in the books. The Oxford Middle School remains undefeated here in this weird season, but good to be with you. How you doing?
I am doing good. It's as we get it. It's at a call that I've got to return today for my sister. Christmas is just it's getting a lot. They didn't move up Christmas; they just moved the damn season back. And a Christmas thing is coming up a little bit sooner than it normally does. But it's going to be an interesting weekend in that we've got conference championship games. I really am sick of scratching games off the schedule. The past few weeks I've done that. We're already doing that. Georgia Vanderbilt is off the schedule. Georgia, by the way, trying to find a game. You feel LSU Ole Miss gonna play? With any chance of that not going off? Because Georgia's looking. Georgia doesn't have a senior day now, so they'd like to get one. And Vanderbilt says, we're not much into football, and we got a female kicker. We're kind of thinking about a female quarterback. We've got other things going on. We just hired a coach. So football's not a real priority. And I'm sorry about your senior, stuff.
So I hear that Georgia's trying to schedule Colorado State, and that's down the path a little bit and could actually happen if the SEC lets it.
Yeah, and I wonder if they would, because is it going to – I mean, I don't know. We don't know. I would assume Georgia would play a bowl game. This has nothing to do with the bowl game. They just want to have a game for their seniors.
Yeah.
I think that's the real thing. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But going to be an interesting week. We got talk about shoes, throwing shoes, and what a blown moment for Florida. We've got a coaching change that we knew was there, and we've got one filled, and we've got one that we talked about for a couple of weeks that we thought there was a chance. We even talked about how that might go at Auburn, and we discussed the fact that on Friday that Gus better not lose that game or it's going to be ugly. It won it. Offense didn't play well. And as I learned, decision was made regardless of the outcome of that game.
Yeah.
It was done. Friday wasn't quite sure of that was going to be the case, but there's another opening. So a lot to talk about. We better get going. I don't know if we can fit it all in. By the way, we're going to do the show Thursday, correct? Right. Thursday at 2 p.m. Central. We're going to be live here again. Mark your calendar. I know we normally do it on Friday, and we've made some changes. But we did it last Tuesday. We had some big-time announcements, and we're going to have even more good news, I think, some things on Thursday. So 2 p.m. Central, Thursday, join us. But let's get to it, man. I don't know where you want to start. But
right, so the games last week, we'll go over the story. Then we'll get to the two big coaching stories that are, I think, out there. Alabama beat Arkansas 52-3. I think we saw that coming. There's not a hell of a lot to say about that. Alabama's just absolutely dominant. I got my Heisman stuff in the email yesterday. Ballots are due by Monday. I'll probably cast mine on Sunday. I'll watch the SEC championship game because I've got to pick which Alabama player I'm voting for.
Yeah.
But sometimes I for a long time I was pretty sure I'm going to vote for Mac Jones, and now I'm like, I think Devontae Smith's the best player in college football. So I don't know. Anyway, LSU knocks off. I've got this all wrong. I've got to pay more attention to what I'm doing. Let's see. Let me edit this. I'm gonna hide it. Go in and edit. I've got LSU beating Arkansas. LSU beat Florida.
It did happen, by the way. It's just not new.
Oh, it's a good point. Yeah, so I wasn't technically wrong.
It wasn't technically wrong, just a little bit out of date, but that's okay. We can roll that way. I think the Florida fans would like us to talk about the LSU Arkansas game again, but we're not doing that.
LSU beat Florida 37-34 in a wild game. I was outside enjoying an outdoor fire. I was by myself Saturday night just watching the game. Had a couple of glasses of something, Chris, if I'm being totally honest. And a couple of times I looked up at the TV and I said, I don't know who's more intoxicated, me or that game.
You thought I've had more to drink than I thought, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I got a couple of thoughts on this, and I want to go big picture on this and that. It's it certainly you can go how it ended in the whole shoe, but to me, it's a part of a bigger process. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Dan Mullen and his acumen as a play caller and play designer and worker with quarterbacks. But the one thing he's going to have to improve upon and is just the overall approach. He's not been at a program as a head coach where there's a lot of quote unquote big games. I mean, Mississippi State, you're one and you're playing Alabama, you're big time underdog. You're at Florida, you're playing a game that you should win. And just think of what that would meant for that team this year.
Sure.
This week, rather. In that you can sell the idea we can win and go into the playoffs. Now, the fact that don't think they're going to beat Alabama just doesn't really matter. You got a shot, you have confidence, you can play that up. Now what you're looking at is you're going to have 3 losses. You're going to turn around. You're going to have 3 losses this year. And it kind of puts a little cold water on a season that was very good. So why did that happen?
I would argue that it poured a lot of cold water.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. The little things matter in coaching. And so I'm going to go from a coaching element. And I'm going to go to the point of what separates Nick Saban more than any. Yes, he recruits great players. A lot of people do. Yes, he develops great players. A lot of people do. Yes, they're really on top of things schematically. A lot of people do. But on top of all of that, the thing that's most unique is how he makes every practice, every meeting, certainly every game, really important. In that if you don't get better each day, then you ruin a chance to get better. And there's a cumulative effect to that. And that's the one thing that is the reason why they're so consistently great and why other programs are every now and then great. They catch lightning in a bottle. We have different phrases, but they're good, but they're not consistently good. It's what takes somebody who can be the leader in the first round of the Masters or the U.S. Open, but then do it 4 rounds, it's not the same. You can maybe win 1 major title, but winning 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or more is what separates you. So what does this really have to do with Florida? You came in with the idea, there is no doubt, they did not need Kyle Pitts to win this game. They did not need his playmaking ability to win the game. But when you sit a guy in this moment, you're sending a message to your team, and it probably was reflected in all your preparation that we got this. That is not the message you want to have with your team, because I can tell you, there was a lot of fog, but the team played like they prepared in a fog. Like it was, we got this. And if you look at Florida all year, I've said it all year long, man, they start off slow. And every week you ask me, well, what's the formula for LSU to win? Or Vanderbilt, first quarter. Everybody Florida plays, it's like they have a hard time getting out of the gate, and they figure it out. Well, that's not maximizing what you are and what you have. And this is a team that is vulnerable on defense. So when your offense doesn't click, when you're ineffective in the red zone, you throw a pick 6. When your offense is not great, then you're not going to win because your defense is not going to carry you. And I think the whole attitude, they had no margin for error in most games. In this game, I think they felt they had a lot of margin for error. And you know what? They did, because they still had chances to win that game late. But why did it come down to that? And then what is it about a player throwing a shoe? Why would a guy even go there? Why would he even think to throw a shoe, a mouthpiece, a football, an arm, a wristband? Why?
It reminded me of the Elijah Moore thing last year.
Yeah, it was. I thought I was watching the Egg Bowl.
And so I'll tell you the answer not to interrupt you, and I'll let you get back going again. I think the answer is, and look, I have a lot of respect for Dan Mullen. I have a lot of respect for Matt Luke. But sometimes inside of a program, there's just a lack of discipline. There's a lack of awareness. It's not, and sometimes you're exactly right to say what you said about Alabama. I thought it was interesting in the fourth quarter of Alabama's game in Fayetteville. Game's well in hand. I mean, my God, it's been over for hours. And Alabama's got the backups in. They're 7 days away from the SEC championship, an SEC championship game that, quite frankly, they don't even have to win to make the playoff. And Nick Saban is coaching defense intensely. And I thought, people make fun of this and we laugh about it, and the announcers did. But I thought, that's what separates them from everyone else, is that they have this locked in attention to detail that really never's too big of a word, but almost never wavers from kick to final buzzer. Even in a game when it's completely over, they have this locked into the situation. And then you look at Florida, even in that moment when the kid threw the shoe, they just made a play. They just made a stop. Yeah. LSU is going to have to surrender the football right there. You're going to get it back with an opportunity to win the game and be able to walk out of there going, woo, that was close, but we're good. Everything's fine. And you throw a shoe 20 yards. You keep a drive alive. LSU kicks the field goal to beat you. And I look at it and just think, your program is not aware. Your program is not disciplined. And frankly, that's on the coaching staff. That's on Dan Mullen. It just is.
Well, it is. And when you run onto the field in a previous game and you challenge a player or a coach, you kind of, nothing wrong with the emotion, but you can't quite control your emotion, and you now gyrating to the fans. And that little hyperactivity it becomes okay to do that. Look, there's one way to never cross the line. Don't ever go down the path where you even see the line.
Yeah.
So you can't, it's like, look, I tell guys, you score, you make a big play. Don't use energy falsely. Go into the huddle, get ready for the next play, make another great play. You would not think in some cases, in some disciplined operations, to decide, is this doable or not? You don't even think about it. It's not even something that would come up. So I think that is part of a bigger pattern, and is something that it reared its head. But to me, that's the first thing I thought, oh my God, he did something undisciplined. And immediately I start thinking about Dan running on the field. He's done things like that. That is a big part of it. And of course, Dan's that's his personality to some degree. He's very arrogant, which a lot of guys are, and that's okay, but you've got to be able to control it. And he hasn't controlled it all that well, and it cost them. But yeah. It's the overall preparation, the lack of details, the lack of discipline leads to the fact that you weren't prepared for the game. And then when you had a chance to win it, as you said, made a play, and Florida's going to win that game. Florida's going to get the ball back, going to win it there or win it in overtime, because I definitely like Kyle Trask with no clock issues in the overtime. But they gave them their shot.
I watch a lot of Major League Baseball. I've talked about that. I like it a lot. I turn it on for background all the time. And I'll be in here working during the spring, during the summer, and I'll just turn a random game on. It can be Mariners, White Sox, whatever. The one thing that always resonates, that always rings true in a baseball season, and it does for a college football team too, it's just a little different, is whatever Achilles heel you have, whatever fatal flaw you have, whatever major issue that you have, you might be able to hide it over the course of a 162 game season. You might be able to disguise it, to bury it a little bit. But sometime in the playoffs, maybe it's in the first round, maybe it's in the championship series, maybe it's not until the World Series, but at some point, that Achilles heel is going to pop up, and you have to either overcome it or it gets you. For some baseball teams, it's a bullpen. It's hey, we just are a left-handed arm short in that bullpen, and we just can't get that right-handed hitter out late in a game, whatever it may be. And for Florida, you've seen it over the course of this season. They've not been able to put teams away sometimes. They've flirted with they've kind of like Ole Miss got back into a game a couple of times. First week of the season, Kentucky hung in with them. You mentioned the slow start against Vanderbilt. They blew a game late against A&M because they couldn't finish a game. And then they had the discipline thing with Missouri that led to all the crap. And sure enough, here it is in this big moment, your Achilles heel pops up again, and it finally bit them. And it resonated with me when by the time I sobered up, I thought, that's how it works. Whatever your weakness is, and this is where Alabama's great. Alabama has weaknesses, but they work all year long to eradicate the weakness, not to cover it up, to eliminate it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's focus, it's attention to detail, and it's not about the highlight or the spotlight. It's about the little details. The devil's in the detail. I do think that it is how you practice is how you play. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that the performance in practice is sometimes which you are not able to do well in practice, you modify and you adjust, and therefore the game is a little bit better or sometimes worse, depending on how it goes. But the attention to detail, and I think those things, they manifest itself again at the worst time. So look, it was a tough loss. Now, look, I'm going to be honest. I don't think there was much of a chance for Florida to beat Alabama anyway, but the fact that they've cheated themselves out of that moment, to have that moment to go in, you'll go back in future years and would have been able to say, you know what? They played in the SEC championship game, for the right to go in the playoffs. Now, they were big underdogs, and they didn't win, but they were played for it. We made it to the conference. We didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but we made it to the conference championship. Now, they kind of limped in. And then on the other side, I'm going to tell you what is going to happen to the other guy on the other side. The other guy, Saban, is going to say, look, this team is embarrassed. We're going to get their best effort. They play. He's telling his team this offense is as good as LSU's was last year, whether he believes it or not. He is selling them on that. He is challenging their defense and the focus, this attention and everything. So, yeah, Florida can still play and win an SEC title. How you think they're going to feel if they do pull an upset over Alabama, realizing we didn't show up, we didn't prepare against LSU? What could have been?
Sure.
And so either way, and I think it's going to be obviously a loss and the decisive one to Alabama. It's going to be now a 3-loss season, and it's going to be about a bowl game that probably they're not going to be inspired to play in, and probably somebody in the league office is going to have to say, "Go boy, go play," because I don't think they're going to be all right. So you're looking at something, and then what an opportunity, because quarterback and the tight end in particular that kind of drove a lot of this team, they're going to be gone, and now people are going to remember that. And this is one of those games, just like the P game and Elijah Moore, it is going to be, and you're talking about a really good player there that did that, and he's going to regret this, and this is going to be known as the shoe game forever.
So let's talk about it real quick, because I want to get to Auburn. Gus Malzahn fired. Clark Lee gets hired at Vanderbilt. There's a lot of things I want to get your thoughts on today. We spent a lot of time last week. I did, at least. You did too. Kind of ripping LSU, talking big picture about LSU, lack of discipline, lack of focus, all of those things. Credit goes to LSU. I really thought LSU would show up in Gainesville, get steamrolled, and leave. And you asked about Ole Miss LSU this weekend. There's no doubt in my mind the game's going to get played. This time a week ago, I thought, I don't know, LSU might conveniently kind of come up with some COVID stuff and just say, hey, we can't go. I think LSU showed that people like me were wrong. I mean, there's still something left in the tank there. I thought for them, at a time when they needed to silence some of the stuff, the noise that was going on outside of their building, they not only got a win, but maybe more importantly, they really showed up and played hard.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out and the difference in my mind was that the young guys, and this is a positive sign for the future potentially, is the younger guys that are not playing for the NFL draft. We talked about the dysfunction at LSU all year has been real, all year long. The older players that have NFL futures, thinking about that. It was about the young guys taking ownership, that the guys that will be back, that have to be back, that want to be back, whatever, they took ownership here. And I think they capitalized on, there were opportunities where, look, Florida made mistakes. I mean, had Florida not thrown a pick six, had they gotten an early lead by 17 points, maybe it's different. Maybe the confidence level is different. But because Florida did not play well, LSU took advantage. And I think Max Johnson makes a difference. I think he's more mobile, and I think he's a better processor, and I think he's more accurate. I think he can drop the ball down the barrel a little bit better, and I think we saw some of that. Young receivers, well, who's going to play and step up? I give a lot of credit to that coaching staff to say, here's your time, you go out there. But I don't think the results are anywhere near the same if Florida shows up and plays a good game and puts a good effort together for them. And again, much like no one thought LSU had a chance, I think Florida played it like they didn't have a chance. Well, LSU came out and said, young guys, we got nothing to lose. We don't have anything on the line. We're playing for pride. We're playing for our future. And, we're playing for our spot because there's a lot of things going to be looked at and studied on in that whole operation. So a lot of credit. On the other side, if you want to look at it and say, well, why didn't we see that effort before for LSU? Why did it take? Does it have to take that? Regardless, a lot of credit. They deserve a lot of credit. And Florida deserves to be kind of looked at and laughed at off of their preparation and performance because that's what it was all about. So, hey, congrats. And does that translate this week for LSU? Don't know. Is the preparation going to be as focused? Are you playing with confidence? I think it absolutely could, but we'll see what type of effort. And the lack of consistency has been a problem. This year, it's been consistently bad. Maybe we'll see 2 weeks in a row where they'll play well.
All right. In Starkville, Auburn goes to Starkville. They beat Mississippi State. It was a pretty nondescript game. It was kind of what you expected. Mississippi State's offense just doesn't really work against good defenses. Auburn was good enough. They won the game. That was far from the story. On Sunday, Gus Malzahn relieved of his duties after, 8 seasons as the head football coach at Auburn. No one's surprised that this happened, not even in a COVID year when money is teams are bleeding money. I'm told, and you will probably know more about this than me, I'm told that the boosters came up with the buyout money. He's due about $10.5 to $11 million within the next 30 days. And then the other remaining $10.5 to $11 million, there is no offset. He'll get every penny of it, will be distributed over the next 4 years annually in even amounts. So $2.6 million a year for the next 4 years. Not a bad severance package if you can get it. It's good Christmas at the Malzahn house. So Gus is gone. Who's next at Auburn? Because I'll tell you the name that keeps popping up, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, Chris. I keep hearing a lot of Kevin Steele, and my attitude is, if it's Kevin Steele, what are you waiting on? National Signing Day is tomorrow.
Yeah, couple of things. Raymond Harbert, Jimmy Rain they're the they're stroking the majority of the money, if not all of it. They're going to make this hire. It's not Alan Green. It rarely is the Auburn athletic director.
But had it been Alan Green, a firing would not have happened on Sunday.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is, look, let's go back a little bit. This move was going to be made 2 years ago. We went through this, the Arkansas flirtation, and then ironically, Raymond Harbert was the one that told. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was Leith was the name of the president at the time. No athletic director. He went ahead and go ahead, pay Gus the money, because the ego didn't want them to allow him to leave to go to Arkansas. And I go into this in grave detail at LandryFootball.com. I encourage people to go listen to the whole process. Well, the reality is this is kind of dead man walking. So they're ending up doing what they wanted to do a couple of years ago. It's just going to cost them a lot more money. We've talked about Auburn in the past, and we've talked about how unique it is. It is very much, and for people who don't know, Neil covered the Auburn beat for a while. There's a lot of this at a lot of schools. Nowhere is it more about and more unique than the Auburn family. Now, let me explain what the Auburn family is. It's not like in other places where you hire a guy that played at your school or something like that. The Auburn family is the guy that has a strong connection to the key booster. So if it's Terry Bowden, whose secretary at Sanford was Bobby Louder's daughter, and there's a connection, then that you're part of it. If you're Bob Petrino and you're a coordinator there and the quarterback coach there under Tommy Tuberville, and you move on and become the Louisville coach, you're kind of one of the you make a relationship with the Bobby Louders. Bobby is not really involved, not him anymore. It's about what is your relationship with the key boosters, and the reason why they are going to hire Kevin Steele, there is no doubt in my mind at this point. That's where it's been headed, and it's where it's been all along.
Really?
Yeah. It's not Hugh Freeze. He's not really in the mix. It's the Mario Cristobal deal. Is Mario's going to get a raise. Mario's the second lowest paid coach in the Pac-12. That's not going to happen.
So let me do this. Let me take you through some names. Let's go through some names on this. Go ahead. Same ones that pop up.
Go ahead.
Mario Cristobal is the hot name at Auburn.
Doesn't want to coach against Saban in the West, and you're going to get a raise, and he won't be the second lowest paid coach in the Pac-12 when this is done. So he's using this as leverage. Yes.
Okay.
And they're not going to hire him.
All right, Hugh Freeze is another name that keeps coming up.
A name that I think some people would like, and I think he's just on the list because he's going to come up on most of the list. He's not part of the Auburn family, and that's not what they want to do.
Lane Kiffin.
Lane is not on their list, is not somebody that they would consider. He's not part of the Auburn family, and that's not where they want to go.
Billy Napier.
Billy's not high profile enough, hasn't done enough, and he's not part of the Auburn family. I see a pattern here.
So I had a friend tell me this morning, he said, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. The friend's fairly connected. Doesn't cover Auburn, but pretty connected over there. He says, you're going to see Mario Cristobal announce an extension / raise / whatever.
Yep.
And then within a day, Kevin Steele is going to be the head coach at Auburn. You think it happens that quickly?
Here's what I think has happened. So first of all, let me tell you not what I would do. And I'm going to leave that for the Landry Football Podcast. Because that's a long detail, and I don't want to diatribe too much. I got diarrhea of the mouth too much anyway. So I'm going to let you kind of dive into that, folks out there. But let me give you the Raymond Harbert, Jimmy Rain side of this. They're thinking, okay? You may not agree with it. Let me tell you what I think is. Okay. First of all, they've developed a relationship with Kevin. Kevin, they like him. They believe in him. They've got a trust with him. That's the big issue. Now, they don't want to go and hire somebody that they don't think can be successful. Their feeling is Auburn has been consistently well coached under Kevin Steele for a long time. Now, Kevin's been a head coach a long time ago at Baylor. Didn't work out well. He's been at places like Clemson, got fired at Clemson when they got like 70 points scored up against him in a bowl game, and then worked for, Saban.
Yep.
And Ford had been very successful and been around a long time. And they think that's been very well coached part, definitely the best coach part of the program. So they look at people say, well, he's no different than Gus. Well, he's a lot different than Gus. I mean, he may not be any better in terms of results, but he's completely different. Gus is not a good recruiter. Kevin is. This team is built around the defense. When they've got really good talent, developed talent like last year, that was a dominant defense. Nobody had a better game plan against LSU's offense last year than Auburn did. That's true. This year, lost a lot of talent. They're not nearly that good, and they've struggled some, but they've been well coached and they've gotten better. So their thinking is okay, here's the guy, because they're not going to say it this way, but here's the reality. Here's what they don't want to tell you. He is their guy. He is Jimmy Raines and Raymond Harvard's guy. He's the boosters' guy. That's it. You can't look at this on the outside and say, well, go and hire this guy and that guy that I might do that maybe is a little bit more proven, because he's not part of the Auburn family. That's how it works there. Okay, so that's kind of what they think with him, and they look at it as with Gus as the offense has been the problem, and that's what Gus was there for. Gus got the job. Again, why did Gus get the job? Because he was the coordinator for Gene Chizik, so they brought him back. Why did Gene Chizik get the job? Because he was at Auburn as an assistant before he went to Iowa State. Get a pattern here? You follow me? I mean, it's not that difficult. You don't have to be Inspector Clouseau to figure out how they do it there on the plains, okay? So that's how they feel. Why don't they just announce it immediately? Well, they understand they're going to get a lot of pushback on that. Because what is everybody going to say? And have at it, because it's true. You mean you're going to pay $21 million plus overall to fire Gus Malzahn to hire his defense coordinator? Well, on what planet does that make sense? Well, nowhere but the plains. But they will couch it and say something along the lines of, we looked out there and we examined a number of possibilities. And, of course, all those names, are there real names out there? But then when we looked at it, the best fit for Auburn is right here on our staff. And they're going to say some of the things that I mentioned. That's how they will play the game. If they turned around and hired Kevin right away, then it looks like what it really is, right? Kevin's been the plan all along. They want to say, no, Kevin hadn't been the plan all along. We looked at everything. No, Neil, we backed up. We looked at everybody, and this is how it's going to play out. Look, I'm not giving you inside information. I'm telling you, and I've said this on a number of searches, in order to understand coaching searches, you need to understand who's doing the search. Because it's not like the NFL where it's going to be pretty much similar. College, it really depends upon who's making the decisions. So who's making the decision? I've already said that. Who do they want? There you go. No one else is going to tell the money guys what they can do with their money. That's why they paid off the guy, and that's why they're going to do what they want to do. You said it. I agree with you. I don't think Allen would have made this decision now. My thing on this is the timing didn't make sense. The timing should have been 2 years ago, because then you could have done something different. And no, look, I get that. Bo Nix is the problem. It's this and that. No, Gus has been the problem, because Gus is there to fix an offense. And why does Gus call plays and he's not calling plays? They give it to this guy, he takes it back. Because the power brokers tell him, Gus, this is not working. In order for an extension, in order you keep your job, this is years ago now, you got to hand it over to somebody. Well, I'm going to hire Rhett Lashley, and he's going to be a token. And, and it's just this and that. This is how it works at Auburn. You know Auburn well. You've covered that's a big part of it. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think is always going to happen. I read through the tea leaves yesterday pretty good, and look, that's kind of how I see it. And it's not what people tell you, it's what they don't tell you and kind of how it leads you. So most of mine is, again, understand Landry's not saying talk to these two guys. It says it's definitely this is what they're going to do. I'm telling you, is my sense is this is how they're going to do it and how it's going to be it. Because look at the timeline and how they use the media, Neil.
Sure.
It is, it's you, Freeze. It's you, Freeze. It's Cristobal. Oh, good. Big name. They're not going to fire Gus unless they've got you, Freeze, and going to go here and there. And then how they leaked it out last night. I loved it because you and I talked about Kevin Steele 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And last week. Last night I get these texts, these tweets that, new name of the merging at Auburn. It's Kevin Steele. I mean, you probably respect a great deal. Bruce Feldman is outstanding. Am I not correct? You're a lot better than I am. It's the new name, and then it's like other guys. They're picking this up now because it's being floated out now. So no. It's these other guys, and then now, boy, we looked at it now, and then it's float this out. The new name is now Kevin Steele's the new name, and boy, yeah, and it makes it. That's how they couch it, folks. It ain't my first rodeo. It ain't Neil's first rodeo. I mean, we talked about this last week and 2 weeks ago. I've said it before. I'd be shocked if it's not Kevin Steele. I did look and research the possibility. I know I'm going long. I apologize. But about the possibility of putting an offensive guy with Kevin. Would Kevin want to do that? Things that, look, he sold him on the idea that he can bring in an offensive guy and fix it and complement the defense. And so, anyway.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because I've already heard some offensive names. I'm not really comfortable going there yet, but because I don't have it, I'd like to have it a little better than that before I ran with people's names here the day before signing day. Kevin Steele doesn't run, if it's his program, I don't think, based on what I'm told, he certainly doesn't run a Chad Morris offense. Does he try to kind of get more pro style, more run oriented, which is kind of what Auburn is comfortable with? What happens there?
I think he's going to try to run something that first of all, he's got a quarterback that's talented. I think he's going to try to work the running game, but I think he knows you got to throw it. I think he understands, and his background now is you got to be able to throw the football. The thing that they don't have at Auburn and hasn't had with Gus is they have no passing game at all. What I mean by that is there's no pass protection concepts. There's no route tree concepts that they work. They don't work it. They never have, and that's the problem. Gus knows what he knows, and that's it. Chad sees it differently. I don't think Chad's necessarily going to – I don't think he's going to be the guy. What I think Kevin's going to do is hire an offensive guy that's going to be a little bit more balanced. They're going to run it, going to work some RPOs, potentially recruit guys that can run and throw, but they understand. It's going to look like what I think most coaches want to do, and that is, even the defensive coaches, we've got to be able to throw it well, but we need to be able to run the football, and it can't be just all the up-tempo stuff. Need to be good up-tempo, need to be good 4-minute. That's what I think Kevin's plans are if he does get the job, if indeed does get the job.
All right, people can go to Landry Football and listen to your entire podcast about what you would do. In a nutshell, if Chris Landry were given the power at Auburn, would Kevin Steele be your hire?
No, because I think it's a job that could command somebody that's a little bit more proven that I think would be a good coach. But I would hire it for that and let him build his culture and his brand. Again, that's not what the decision makers want. They want their guy. And so somebody that could do a good job but is not their guy, it's the college version of Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
Why does Jerry Jones get certain guys? Because he was miserable when Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells coached the team, because those guys got the spotlight.
Look, Chris,
These guys like to run it, and that's why they're going to do what I said they're going to do. But I'm not against Kevin. I actually think Kevin is going to do a better job than Gus. I think he's a better overall coach than Gus, a better head coach guy. But it's not the direction I would go. There's another guy I would go that I would love for them, but that's not what they're going to do.
Listen, I've covered this twice now at two different places. At Alabama, Nick Saban got hired in, what was that, 2007?
At Alabama, folks, yes.
Yeah. Nick Saban got hired in 2007, but only after Alabama had to come to the harsh reality that they could no longer live off Bear Bryant, that it was no longer an effective sales pitch, that they were no longer an elite program. Yeah, now Mike Dubose took them to an SEC championship. Mike Shula had a 10-win season. Dennis Franchione had a nice season. But they were no longer the dominant program in the SEC, and the teams behind them were starting to catch them. I wrote a column that everybody got pissed off about. Still, they don't do it anymore, but for the longest time, I'd get it thrown at me. They'd been passed. And even with Nick Saban rumored to be out there, Mal Moore offered the job to Rich Rodriguez. Only after Rich Rodriguez took it and then reneged on it did they go, you know what, we're going to hire Saban. And we're going to bring Saban in, and we're going to tell all the good old boys who want the control, who want the power, get the hell out of the way. We just want to win. We want to be Alabama again. And they are. I watched it at Ole Miss just recently. Ole Miss always wanted to hire somebody that it could control. Mm-hmm. They wanted to hire somebody who would be beholden, who would let the old men come to the practice, who would let everybody hang out at the cafeteria. They call it the 1810 grill, where the players eat and stuff, where the boosters could have their hands on the program and be around the program and tell everybody, hey, I talked to Coach Luke and Coach Luke told me, and they wanted all that stuff. And only when they hit rock bottom and realized that they were completely irrelevant did they go, hey, you know what? We're going to have to do something different. And they go out and they hire somebody in Lane Kiffin who has zero ties to Ole Miss. Who doesn't care about Ole Miss? Lane Kiffin's a football coach. Lane Kiffin, but he comes in and day one tells everybody, all the dead weight, get the hell out. He comes in and tells everybody, if you're not meant to be in here, you're not going to be in here. If you're not doing something for us, get out. I'm going to win. I'm going to recruit. I'm going to do it my way. This is how it's going to be done. I don't care how it's always been done at Ole Miss. I don't care. I don't care that people always had practice access. They don't anymore. It's my program. And you see them starting to reap the rewards of that. In a pandemic year, they're recruiting at a really high level all of a sudden. That's a decision that is very hard for people to make because the power people, the booster people, the big money people, they want desperately to be able to have their hands in and on the program so that they can continue to tell everybody out there, yeah, I tell you, I talked to Coach Smith, and Coach Smith told me, and he's coming over. We had lunch with Coach Smith. All that stuff's important to those people. And only when the moment comes, Chris, only when the moment comes, when people go, you know what? I just want to win. I want to win. I want it to be fun again. Winning's more, as the great Newt Lelouch said, winning, it's like better than losing. Only when you decide that it means more to you than access and control does a program make that move. And maybe Auburn's not ready to make that step right now.
Well, here's the thing. It's difficult when you've got a handful, or in this case, a couple, mainly two, that write the checks.
Sure.
With the checks come the power. So they have to be willing to do that. So, like, for example, Paul Bryant Jr. was a little bit of an issue, and there's a little bit of clashing with Saban when he first got there. But you had somebody in Mal Moore who Paul Bryant Jr. liked and respected because he worked for his dad. And, you know, he was able to smooth that over. Look, you know, and then Paul Bryant Jr. is not someone, he's very, for people who don't know, Paul Bryant Jr. is not just Bear's son. I mean, he is Bear's son, but the power came. He's very wealthy. He's made a lot of money in the concrete business and a lot of other stuff. But he was okay with, whatever he needed to communicate or whatever. I mean, he was very big still in the university system. He got UAB shut down, all that kind of stuff. But my point is they have to be willing to do that. It's one of the problems. So, if you're at Auburn, you got mainly right now 2 guys. At Texas, you got like 12. So the best thing about Texas is all their booster money. The worst thing about Texas is all their booster money.
Yeah.
Because they, when they float out, we're going to go get Urban. And they, the media is not quote unquote wrong. They're getting the information. What they're wrong about is those guys that are telling you that can't get them. And all of a sudden they don't have another option. And that is a situation. Rock says there's no way Barry Alvarez would tolerate this. They don't have the money guys. He doesn't have to deal with it. It's a completely different dynamic. Wisconsin doesn't play that type of game. Barry would not make it as an athletic director at Auburn. You're correct. He wouldn't tolerate it, and he, quite frankly, wouldn't be hired there. That's not what they want. That's not how it works. It's a completely different dynamics there. And, the expectations at Auburn are different than at Wisconsin and other places. So, yeah, that's what I said. If you're going to understand coaching searches, you better understand the dynamics and the politics of the school. All politics are local. Therefore, they are. Everybody has them. USC has them. There's a lot of that incestuous view of it. But Auburn's unique in that it's not like they didn't go out and, there were people at certain points in time. A lot of people thought Pat Sullivan might get the job back after Pat. No, it wasn't. Who's more of an Auburn guy? But that's not an Auburn guy. It's who has the good relationship with the key folks. The Auburn guy should be translated. It's not the Auburn guy, not part of the Auburn family. It's part of the booster faction family, which is really, like I said, mainly 2 guys and a couple of others.
We'll get to a couple other topics in just a minute. I want to tell you first that we're brought to you in part by Blue Sky. Blue Sky believes in being fast, fresh, and friendly. Through the thoughtful layout and cleanliness of their stores, Blue Sky hopes to provide customers with a fast and easy buying experience. From services to products, Blue Sky plans to keep things fresh and always provide the freshest flavors of their brand name products and the best services available. They even bring in some of the newest products on the market to their stores to provide an even better customer experience. A smile can say it all, Chris, and Blue Sky wants to show their customers that they care about them and their shopping experience. They'll always strive to improve their efforts to accomplish exactly that. So check out Blue Sky today at any of their 48 store locations across the Southeast. If you're traveling for the holidays, first, please be careful. But second, if you're stopping and you see a Blue Sky, do us a favor, drop in and tell them that you're there because you enjoy SEC football and beyond. That would be a really nice thing for you to do for us.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate them being aboard. And look, we're here talking football, SEC football and beyond. It's sponsors like that allow us to do that. So we appreciate anything you can do to make their phone ring and get them involved. And let Neil and I know if there's anybody else that that would like to get involved with us. We'd love to do this and grow this with you guys.
Absolutely. All right. So speaking of growing and moving on, Vanderbilt has hired Clark Lee. They've canceled their final football game. They just said, to hell with it. You know what's going to happen in Athens. We know what's going to happen in Athens. Let Colorado State or somebody else take that beating. We're going to move on. They hire Clark Lee, the Notre Dame defensive coordinator. If you talk to people around Vanderbilt, they'll tell you that they view Clark Lee as the closest thing they could get to Pat Fitzgerald, the Northwestern coach. You know these people. I don't. Do you buy some of the reasoning that Clark Lee reminds Vanderbilt of the Northwestern coach?
Just that he was a player. And for people who don't know, Clark has got a longtime background in Nashville, still got family there, played baseball at Belmont, walked on at Vanderbilt, that's where the comparisons end. Pat wasn't was an All-American linebacker, and not that the overall playing skills have anything to do with it, but just the whole "this guy is one of ours" type thing. The difference is Northwestern has been willing to, and certainly did after some success with Pat. I will give that. Ryan Field's nothing to write home about, but the football facilities that they've built have been phenomenal. But Pat had success in before they decided to put those tremendous, beautiful, lush facilities along Lake Michigan. The problem at Vanderbilt has always been, and look, this is not they haven't had winning seasons for like since 76 to 2010. They've never won an SEC title. I mean, they won a title in 23 in the Southern Conference pre-SEC. Vanderbilt could be a version of a Northwestern. It could be a Duke. Stanford's a little bit more national, but Vanderbilt academically has the pedigree to do a lot of that. And I think if they were interested in doing so, they could take some of that money and put it into the facilities to make it a little bit more of a notable look of a school, because it is a great academic school, but it's hard to recruit because of the academic requirements and the limited curriculum. Like if you look at the curriculum at Duke and at Northwestern and at Stanford, they offer far more programs than Vanderbilt. Well, not every football player wants to get in pre-law and pre-med, and they got more than two. I don't mean that, folks, but it's not a real appealing for a lot of normal. I mean, you got to really go there and want to be. I think they should play onto that. I think they should have the best training facility in the country, athletic training facility, and capitalize on the great medical school and things. They don't do that. They don't want to do that. They have given lip service time and time and time and time again that they're going to do it, and they've never done it. So there's no reason to think they're going to do it. They take the money and they put it into whatever they want to, which is their prerogative. I just say don't expect folks to buy into that you're wanting to be a successful football program when the only thing you ever do to contribute to your football program is every, 5 to 7 years, fire a coach and say, well, we're going to get another guy. It just doesn't do anything. So full disclosure, and again, got a complete detail of this entire search at Vanderbilt, which was really not much of a search. Let me say this. It is a great hire for Vanderbilt. Let me clarify that. Clark's not going to win there, but it's as good a hire as Vanderbilt could make. Jamie Chadwell, Will Healy are not interested in the job. None of the names that you read about were candidates for this job. I admit, I talked to Clark about this when this first came open, and he knows the Vanderbilt situation better than I do. But the issue is, what does this do for your career? And I can put it as plainly as can be in that it's a graveyard job. So if you coach there, it's going to be hard for you to get away without damaging your reputation, because that's all you have. Derek Mason is horrible as a coordinator. He's not somebody that, it's not somebody that's going to be high on Arizona's list. It's just, it's not. It just.
Hey, listen, in fairness, Derek made a lot of money at Vanderbilt. Generational wealth at Vanderbilt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
And if you look, it's your school, Clark, you're going to make good money. It's very likely that even if you don't win, you could probably milk this for 7 years, 8 years, potentially. It's depending on if you win a few games here and there. If that's what you want, Godspeed. If you think you're going to be able to do this long-term and be your destination job, it won't work, because they're not going to put enough in their facilities to make it a destination job. They will eventually fire one of their own, Watson Brown, eventually. sure, if you win there, you could move on. James Franklin. But let's be honest, too. And James did a phenomenal job there. But Georgia wasn't right. Florida wasn't right. Kentucky wasn't right. Tennessee, God knows, is far from being right. It's a little bit fool's gold. James could not win right now at Vanderbilt. He could not compete, and he got out of there as quick as he could. So, look, it's a tough job. It is. Look, this is your destination job, and it's the destination won't be as long as probably you hope. Clark, I think, has fallen into it. And I thought maybe being that he knows Vanderbilt would probably not get sucked into the buy, which everybody does. He would understand better that they're not going to do what it takes. No, it's a graveyard job, Chet. You don't know what you're talking about. It's a graveyard job if you want to be a head coach. It doesn't allow you a chance to compete in a league where everybody else have the best facilities. So it's I'm happy for Clark if that's what he wants. I'm happy for Vanderbilt because they can't get someone that's proven. They would have had to get an assistant, like a guy like a Willie Fritz at Tulane. Wasn't interested. Tulane's got better facilities, and he can compete with that in his own league. So I get it. I don't mean this to be rude, but Vanderbilt could be a lot better. It is not better, and they choose to not be better. And I don't recommend this for a coach that wants to further his career. Let's hope that Clark has some success to where he can move on or maybe make this a longer job than most have. There's a reason why they have to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
All right, Tennessee plays Texas A&M this weekend. Then they're going to have a decision to make. I don't really hear any buzz right now about Tennessee making a change. Again, National Signing Day is tomorrow. The signing period goes Wednesday through Friday. That game is on Saturday. You can do the math with what I'm getting at. Do you anticipate on Sunday any chance at all that Tennessee moves on?
I don't think so. And what's going to be interesting is we've talked about this before. People will say, and we'll say this, that, well, Hugh Freeze wasn't interested in Auburn. He's waiting for Tennessee. That'll be the narrative. I don't think he would pass up Auburn. Burn the hand's better than two in the bush. He wouldn't turn down Auburn with the idea, because I do think if both were open at the same time and all things are equal, he probably would like the Tennessee job. But he's not going to.
Hugh Freeze isn't turning down Auburn any more than a starving guy's turning down a cheeseburger.
Right. Right. He's not turning it down to wait for Tennessee.
Hell no.
Look, the Tennessee fans want Hugh Freeze. I think Hugh Freeze would love that job. I'm going to say this again. It's not what Philip Fulmer wants to do. There again, does Jim Haslam in particular, who's got a good relationship with Philip, does he demand that Philip do something and buy out Jeremy and go out and hire Hugh Freeze? I mean, if they're completely blown out and it's the look, do they want to do that? I think if you have made the decision that you're really concerned about Jeremy, then waiting another year doesn't really help it. And it's risky because it puts you in a bad situation. Because I do think Hugh Freeze is a viable guy that would be a candidate that you don't know is going to be there next year. You don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's one to watch, but I don't know how it's going to happen. It's going to have to be you fire Philip Fulmer or you demand Philip Fulmer that he does this, because Philip Fulmer is not hiring Hugh Freeze. I mean, he's doing it with, you got to lead that horse to water, and you're going to have to dip its head in the water and make it drink and then pull it up for it, because he does not want to do that. And as long as he has enough stroke with Jim Haslam, who for all we know is maybe just kind of excited that his Browns are going to be in the playoffs this year. Maybe he's not as, whatever. Or maybe he's putting more attention to Tennessee. I don't know.
That was a crazy game last night.
Sure was. A great game last night. I think the situation there's a little different in that the athletic director, Philip Fulmer, has the ear of a couple of the key boosters. So he might be able to hold off the boosters from wanting to make that move. But you never know if he can. I mean, I think he will. My guess is that Jeremy's coming back next year, but I don't know that for certain. I don't.
All right, last minute or two, I'm curious because we talk a lot about Hugh Freeze over the last few weeks. Is there any chance that Hugh Freeze can land Arizona, maybe one of these ACC jobs that might open up? There's a lot of rumblings about Duke, for example. There's a lot of talk about some jobs are going to pop open on Sunday. Is there any chance Hugh Freeze can get one of those, or is Hugh Freeze, for lack of a better word, stuck at Liberty? And I think he's got a great deal at Liberty, don't get me wrong, but is that something he's just going to have to start to accept?
Yeah, he's not a candidate at Arizona, and I don't think will be, and I don't think would want that. I don't think certainly not Duke. I mean, Cut is, because it's been such a bad year, you might want to come back to fix it. The Duke replacements on the staff, Scott guy, that's not there has been some talk, and by the way, we'll find out certainly today. I think you'll see Whit Babcock announce that they're sticking with Justin Fuente another year at Virginia Tech. That's one that's been floated out there. I think he's going to be selective. I mean, I certainly don't think of the openings, Illinois, Arizona, that's where he wants to go. I think, certainly an interest in the SEC. I believe he would have looked hard at the South Carolina job. I'm convinced he would have taken it had they offered it to him. That they weren't interested, and I don't know that Tennessee is. I don't know I think eventually another. I think the right job though. I think he's got to raise at Liberty enough to satisfy him to not go and jump at an Arizona or an Illinois. Which, by the way, those schools are not interested anyway. That's not a fit for them. But even if they were, I don't think that's a fit for you personally.
Yeah, I think he's going to be at Liberty another year. I do. I think.
I think so. I don't know where the opening is going to be. I mean, the only thing that would happen certainly in the league or anything that is imminent would be Tennessee. And as I said, I don't see that happening. And I don't see the few ACC jobs that are coming open. I don't think that would appeal to him as maybe much as some people might think.
A lot of good stuff, Chris. That was a lot of fun. We'll come back on Thursday, 2:00 Central Time. We'll come back and preview this weekend slate. There actually are some interesting games on the slate. We've got Texas A&M at Tennessee. We talked about that. Missouri and Mississippi State, an opportunity for Missouri to go, I think, is it 6-4 in Eli Drinkwitz' first season?
That's an outstanding year.
Ole Miss can go to 5-4, have a winning season in Lane Kiffin's first year. They play at LSU, that game at 2:30. And then, of course, Alabama and Florida play in the SEC championship game, that game at 7 Central on CBS. So we'll talk about all of those games.
And real quick, Neil, before you head out, check out at Neil McCready and rebelgrove.com for all the latest, and certainly at LandryFootball.com. We'll both keep you updated between now and Thursday on any of the coaching moves and kind of any progression, because these things tend to move fast. Auburn, if they redirect, go in a different direction than what I think they're doing, we'll keep you up to date on all of that. So check out LandryFootball.com and Rebel Grove.
And we'll talk some recruiting on Thursday as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I hate this early signing day. I like to focus more on that and can't do it.
Well, it'd be easier to do in a normal year where the football season had been over, basically.
Yeah, it's just the coaching searches, got games planned, and by the way, you got top 300 going up on LandryFootball.com. High school recruiting, got a lot of coverage there, as I know it's at RebelGrove.com. So check all of that out as well, all the recruiting updates.
Thanks to all of you guys for being in the chat. Really appreciate you. We'll hopefully see you back on Thursday at 2 p.m. So until then, for Chris Landry, I'm Neil McCready. That does it for this edition of SEC Football and Beyond. Be safe, take care, and we will talk to you soon.